Hello and welcome to the Blue Tweezers channel with myself, Alan, from the channel. And tonight we are doing a live stream of GMT's Comancheria, designed by Joel Toppen. Seemed to be quite a popular solitaire game. I thought I'd give it a go. I've had a few practices with it, and yeah, hopefully I'll be able to stay the course. Jordan, hi. Welcome to the stream. Good to see you. And we've hopefully got a few more to come in, and let me know if you can hear me and see me okay. Everything seems to be green along the board for me, but it may vary at your end. Anyway, the game. So, Comancheria. We're doing a vassal version here rather than physically, but hopefully that shouldn't make well, it should make even better, possibly even better viewing than some of the normal games we do on the table. Right, so Comancheria is about the rise and fall of the Comanche Empire, 1700 to 1875. It's got quite a interesting structure to it. It's a little bit, shall we say, avant-garde. Not your traditional hex encounter or anything like it, and probably not very Euro either. Because it's quite intense and quite deep. So, what do we have here? We've got the board in front of us, and we have the regions around. Mike, thanks for popping in. Yeah, I've enjoyed it while I practiced it, even though it's beaten me up very, very severely at times. But yeah, hopefully if you've had a go at it, you enjoy it as well. Yeah, we have the territory here, which is a kind of Oklahoma, Texas area. There's sort of faded state lines which are written onto the board here. But we're not really concerned about that. We're really concerned about all these splodges, and the connecting, interconnecting little trails between them. So, and we start at the top of the board with this little chap up here, which is a rancheria, and that's us, and it's our rancheria A. Now, the rancherias on the board correspond to the track on the right here, and A is at the bottom, so it's all this stuff here. And we have other spaces, B, C, D, E, and onwards, though I've never really got anywhere near having too many rancherias. Right, and so that's where we start. Now, just going to go through some of the counters here. So, beyond the rancheria, we also have our warbands. Warbands if we look at the rancheria, we have 3 of them in there at the moment. They have an action rating and a movement rating. So they move 5 and they can do 2 things when they're activated. We also have a stack of horses. And horses are what's called resources in this game, and there's several resources. The other ones are further down here in our available resources box, and you can see there are some food, some captives, trade goods, guns, and there's one which is already on the board, which is the bison herds. And they will have particular uses, although the bison, the food, and the captives are very similar. They have a little number, 1 for bison and 1 for captives, and 2 for food, which is their value. And they're very good for, well, firstly, all of this is very good for trading, but also it's very good for boosting your warbands or building new warbands. Right, so that's so the last counter we have is a little chap here called Mahimiana, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And he is effectively the military leader of the rancheria, and he has a mate which is the Paraibo, who only has a track counter, and he is effectively the chief, if you will, the elder of the Rancheria, and they both have they're both very useful, and they both can affect the game in major ways, and this is where some of the intricacy comes in between the relationship between these two and how they can be used in the game. But all they have actually is a rating, which goes from 0 to 6, and so these tracks, they'll go up and down the tracks. But the Mahimiana also has a counter which you can stick on the board, and he goes off with the warbands to do things and gives you bonuses in various things, or possibly movement. It shortens movement costs for certain things. So the other things on the board here, we have these hexagonal counters, the grey ones. So everything's color coded here. Everything in grey is other Indian tribes. So each of these is a tribal settlement, as you can see, and stacking in this game is fairly strict. You can only have one of anything in a hex, with the exception of resources and war columns. But generally, you've got one thing in a hex, in a space. You will also see that there are three colours, spaces with three colours on the extremities. On the west side, we've got a yellow enemy space. On the east, sort of northeast, we have blue spaces which don't really have anything in. And at the bottom, sort of southwest, we have another enemy space in green. And throughout the game, these are your enemies. We also have another one up the top, which is grey. And of course, because it's grey, it's Indian, so it's the northern Indians which are off the board. So these are your enemies, and they'll do you over very, very effectively if you're not careful, and sometimes even if you are careful. So they will march on the board and start to take over the board and squeeze you out. Also, they will launch what's known as wars, which effectively an army will come and try and get you, and quite often they succeed. Excuse me. Yeah, and so these is what we have to worry about. That's all the board. The only other thing I'd mention is right in the middle of the board, you'll see this big hexagon, light grey hexagon with dotted lines. The difference between dotted lines and solid lines. Solid lines anybody can move across. Dotted lines only Indians. That's us and the north, and the other Indians can move across dotted lines. As you'll see, this big hexagon in the middle, which is Palo Duro Canyon, is not open to outsiders. It's a purely Indian space and can be very useful, though in it itself doesn't really give you much. Excuse me, a bit of a cough. Not the cough, of course. Right, so what else on the board? We have each of the regions are a different colour. So Upper Arkansas is purple, then Lower Arkansas is blue, Red River is orange, Brazos, Colorado is brown, Rio Grande is green, and Llano Estacado is red. And these groupings are very relevant for the game, for control of them, and also for cultural reasons as well. And we like to own these entire areas rather than just a spot on them. Okay, so that's enough of the counters and stuff. Well, actually, not quite. We have what's known as the enemy instruction display on the bottom right-hand corner. This is where the game does nasty things to you frequently, very frequently, and the more you do, the more it will hurt you. So there's a certain amount of conservatism in this game that you really don't want to push things. We have a track on the left which has various markers on. Relevant ones for us is culture points and military points. These denote how militarily strong we are, and also how culturally strong we are as well. If both of those counters ever fall to 0, you lose. That's it. Pack the game away. That's not the only way you can lose, though. The other way you can lose, or you can win, is what's known as the history card. Let me highlight that. So there are 4 in the game, because there's 4 periods in the game of history. This is the 1700 to 1749. Now, within it, at the bottom, you'll see a victory check objective. And it says player must control Upper Arkansas and have a rancheria in a second territory. To control a region, which is that purple region at the top, there must be no other Indians and also no other settlements from any of the invaders. And effectively no hexagonal counters. And if you don't do it, you lose. If you do it, well, you'll win the first round, but the reward you get is to go to the second round, which, believe me, is tougher. It just gets harder and harder, this game, in my experience anyway. There are also some instructions on there, and there's also, just at the top, there's a little dice roll table. And this is for enemy actions. See who's going to come and get you. We roll on that table while this card is going. That lasts for quite a while, for a particular history period. And how we move through that history period is in the top left. We have 2 buttons, two counters, one on top of the other. We have operations and passage of time. This is like a minute hand and an hour hand, really. So operations will go up this track. Every time we do an operation and the enemy does operations back at us, this will click up. When it gets to a 3, 4, or 5, instead of just clicking up, we roll a dice, and if we get less than or equal to that number, it jumps to the last box, which is must do passage of time. So that's like the end of the hour. We have to then do an operation called passage of time, where you reset the operations marker down to the top of up to the top of the track, not down, and we click on the passage of time marker, and we go round and round on this, and the passage of time are marching up, and again we roll against those numbers when the passage of time marker gets there, and when that happens, when we fail that dice roll, then that's the end of the history, and we have to do our victory check. And again, if you fulfill it, well done. If you haven't, well, you might as well start again. So that's our timer up here on the operations track. A little bit more to go through here. We've got some cards. So right at the top, we've got what's known as culture cards, and we get one of those, and we have a choice of which one we want to have for free at the start of the game. And I haven't picked it yet, because some of them are good, some of them are not so good. They are in little stacks of 3. Maybe you'll see there's 3 cards in each. You have to buy them sequentially. So you have to buy the first one, the level 1 card. You can then buy the level 2 card, and they cost culture points. Culture points are this little blue marker down here. Remember, if that goes to 0, you with the military marker, you lose the game. So be careful about buying cards, really. You can stuff yourself up quite easily by stuffing your hand with these cards. But they are useful, and we do get one for free at the start. Just a little bit down from there, at the top of the actual board itself, we have the development deck. So these are the kind of event cards that happen. And every time we do a passage of time, you'll get a whole new set. And we start with these 3. They're always set at the start of the game. Dante, good to see you. Yeah, it's harder and harder. Yeah, it's better time. It's self-flagellation. Actually, That's not a good. That's not a bad analogy. It really, really, really gets tough, in my experience. Anyway, I may be playing it completely wrong. I don't think I'm playing it too wrong on the rules, but as far as the strategy in here, maybe I'm missing something. But it's quite a fight. This it really is quite a fight. We've got 2 extra windows up here. We've got the war cards and we've got the success check cup. So normally these would be chits in the physical. And this has 2 types of chit in it. It has a pink marker that says success written on it, which we like. And all the other markers have a number of enemy action points, which we don't like. And we pick out from the success check when we try and do something in the game. Or something that affects the game. If we get success markers, brilliant. If we don't, then the enemy goes at us. And as you go through a set of operations before passage of time, as you pull out these success markers, you keep them, or the board keeps them. You put them on the board in the out of play section, but the enemy AP markers go back in every time you've used them. So there are ways of getting those success markers back in, but yeah, it progressively gets tougher to get these successes. The war deck manages war columns, which there aren't any at the start, and I'll go through it. It's not that difficult. It's a pull of 2 cards each turn while there are war columns around, one of which tells you how they move, and the second card you look at the event, which can be useful or can be practically deadly, in my experience. Okay, so that's the description of what we hear. I'm sure some of you are familiar with the game, so I won't go too much more into it. I need to pick my my card, my culture card, to start off with. I quite like Lord of the Plains level 1. That's on the right there. What that allows me to do is effectively slow down war columns. I'm quite paranoid about them, to be honest. So I might pick that. Horsemanship's very useful. In battles, you get a +1, and you need as many die roll modifiers as you can get, because they're not easy to get. Another one that's good is spirituality. Spirituality, when headmen die, these are Mahamianas and Paraibos, we get to pick the best of 2 dice, which is very, very useful. Warfare is interesting in that you can use what's known as warpath to ravage other settlements and tribes, and if you get enough of those, you can get them removed before they get a chance to recover, if you like, particularly just now due to one of the development cards. So that's an interesting one as well. Trade allows us to trade for some guns, and guns are very useful in battle. Diplomacy gives us absolutely nothing. It just allows us to buy the second diplomacy card if we wanted to. And I think that's all of them. Politics can be quite useful. We can pretty much just kind of nudge other Indian tribes out of the way with it. And that can be useful. I'm going to be my normal paranoid self, and I'm going to get the Lord of the Plains as my culture card. And that won't really do anything until we have a war column, and no my luck, we'll get one pretty soon. Right, well, let's get on with the game. Anyway, that's been almost 20 minutes of going through the Mike. Yeah, warfare is good. Yeah, it was my original pick when I was starting, and it's great. And then it kind of loses its focus. You have to match it with tactics, and when you use it, you're accelerating the game, and it tends to get a lot of enemy action points appear because you're trying to use that card. So I've kind of gone to the Lords of the Plains, and anyway, if you're doing well with that, a war comes along and completely stuffs you up. So it doesn't matter how well you did on the warfare. So that's again that's my slight paranoia going for Lords of the Plains. Assuming a war's going to come along. Right, let's crack on with it. The sequence of play. Let me just get the sequence of play up. and we'll run through it as we're playing. So there is effectively 4 phases, although it's really 3. The first phase is the wall column phase. If there are wall columns, you do this phase. If there aren't, you ignore it completely. So we'll ignore it completely. Then we go to the operation selection phase and the operation execution phase, which is, you choose what you're going to do and then you go and do it. So really, it's kind of the same thing. And then finally, we have the operation cleanup phase, which the operation cleanup phase is probably the most utilitarian name for a phase in which basically the game duffs you over or attempts to. So it's much more than just cleaning up, although you could say that the game tries to clean you up. So you've got this kind of sandwich of wall columns, which are the enemies, then you go, and then the game has another go again. But anyway, as we're coming through here, with the first turn, there is no wall column, so we ignore that. We're down to operation selection phase. So on the operation selection phase, we can do one of 4 things. We can take actions, we can do a culture, we can do a planning, or we can do a passage of time. And sometimes we're forced to do it, then we can voluntarily do it. Wardrobe, hi. Yeah, hopefully you can see and hear us. Yeah, hope you get to where you need to go to safely. But yeah, if we're going to entertain you a little bit on the way, then so much the better. Okay, where are we now? Yes, operator's execution. So I'm going to take some actions. There are 4 actions you can take. And there's another little player aid here, which should show up now. And yeah, so on the left-hand column there, you've got take actions. So the first thing you do is you choose a Comancheria. Well, no guesses for which one I'm going to pick. Is A, and we can flip all the bands to activated that are activated to unfinished. At the moment, they're all unfinished because they're on their strong side. They've got a movement factor rather than what's an F, which is F for finished. So we're all right with that. Then we place these bands into the boxes behind the Paraibe marker. Now, note we've got 3 and there isn't room. So he doesn't do anything. We've just got the 2. And then we will activate one at a time these war bands to do things. We can assign them things. So things we've got to do in the game immediately. We have to get rid of these 2 tribe settlements in Upper Arkansas 4 and 5 to be able to get control of Upper Arkansas, which is our history. We've got a bit of time to do it, so we don't have to go too nuts. Interesting, what we've got is a development card is actually in play, which is known as the Apache War. And if we put 3 or more ravage counters on the tribe, it gets removed. Now, normally during a passage of time, if there are any ravage counters on one of these hexagonal counters, the tribes or settlements, then they get removed. But we can get them removed automatically with 3 ravage counters. And this is why warfare is very useful, because you can breed ravage counters onto these things and get them to disappear. And ravage counters you do by raiding them. And that's what we're going to do with our first band. So he's activated. We're going to give him some horses. We're also going to give him the Mahimiana. He's going to lead them. So let's put those under him, and we'll put them at the Rancheria. Now, as long as you have horses, moving from space to space is 1 movement point, and we have 5. So what we can do here with our MP's marker is go to 5, and we decide what to do. So we're going to raid, and we're going to raid the tribe in Upper Arkansas 4 here. So we move 1 and 2. So we've used 2 movement points. Then we do a raid. A raid, that costs a 1 movement point to do. And when we do that, we meet our success cup, or as I like to know it as, the enemy action points cup. And we pull out a number of counters equal to the strength of the warband, which is 2. However, the Mahimiana may help. So he's there, and his rating at the moment is 2, just like the Paraibo back in A. So we roll a dice, and if we get a 1 or a 2, he adds 1 strength for the number of chits we pick out of the cup. So let's roll. A 5 is no good, so we get 2 chits to pick. So let's pick 2 of these out, and we flip them over and see what's there. We get 1 success, and with that 1 success, we actually put that on the Mahimiana track there, where it says success. The 2 enemy action points is going to go to the available enemy action points area right down the bottom corner, and we'll get to that later. So we got a success, so we did do the raid. First thing that happens is we produce a ravage counter. Then we can steal stuff. Now there's 2 things we can steal off an Indian tribe, or anywhere. One is horses, and the other one is captives. So I'm going to take some captives. So I pull, there was a fixed amount of these resources, and we just stack it with the warband. It spent 3 movement points. For the raid, it's got 2 left. So with those 2 movement points, it's just going to move back to A, and we can stick him in the little resources box here. But we have to flip him over, and he's now finished. We've still got our other chap here. Now we can give him some horses as well. And we could go and raid as well. We could go and hunt some bison. But I think we are going to raid. And this is my paranoia for the game. I left the... I'm always doing that. Put the little... left the player aid up. Sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know. I'm always doing that. So we are going to do some raiding, but we're not going to go in the same place. We're going to go down this dotted line, and we are going to have a go at this yellow enemy space, the west enemy space, which at the moment in this era are the Spanish. The south guys are also Spanish. The north are of course Indians, and we're going to raid there as well. You can do that quite happily. We have no Mahimiana, so we can't do anything else with that. So we don't get any bonuses. So we just get the 2 chits. So let's pull them out. And we flip them over. 2 successes. Okay, that's brilliant. Well, mostly brilliant. It would have been nice if the Mahimiana had that, because these guys don't go to the Mahimiana. These guys stack up and then go straight to out of play. But we can put a ravage counter on that area. We can also get 2 of whatever we want. I think we'll get a captive, and we'll get a horse, I think. It's 1 of each, a bit of variety. So we've grabbed those, and then it's 1 movement point to go back. But if we, I don't usually use the MP's marker, but we've only used 2, 1 to move there and 1 to do the raid. Now we can raid again, but this is where it starts to get a little tricky. There are only, I think, 8 of these success counters, or is it 10? I think it might be 10 actually, and we've already picked out 3. So that's about, you know, at least a quarter, maybe a third of those counters there, and there's lots of other enemy tokens. So we've got to kind of judge at this point whether it's worth doing the raid just to get the extra materials. And I don't think it is, because we're not going to get these successes going on the Mahimiana, which is very useful to us, rather than to out of play, which is not very useful. So I'm not going to push it. I think I'm going to just run back and go back to the resources box of A. And again, we flip him. Now notice I haven't dismantled all this and taken all the bits and pieces away from there, because you don't do that yet. Now we've used up all our war bands that we had activated, so that's the end of our take actions. So what happens now is the fourth phase in the turn, which is the operation cleanup phase. So this is where we actually unload, shall we say. So we've got our finished warbands here. And our Mahimiana. And some more horses. And we've got 2 captives as well. So we're all sorted within the Rancheria. Now we roll a dice for each Rancheria which has finished warbands, and we have 2 here. So on a 1 or a 2, the nastiness starts to happen. A 2, it started already. What we then do is we say the enemy executes 1 free instruction. So now we go down to the enemy instruction display, and you can see these 4 columns, very brightly coloured, which represent the 3 directions of the invaders. So we need to find out firstly which of the invaders is going to get this free instruction. So we roll a dice for that. A 2, we look on our history card, and 2 is north. So that's the Greys. All right. So the Greys, the north, their first marker says raid 2, and it's letter A, which is not that relevant and meaningful anyway. But and it will cost that many enemy action points to normally play, although this is free, so it doesn't cost anything. Now raid sounds very nasty, and actually it really is. However, when you actually do this instruction, and I'll put up the instructions here, I'm going to move it. There we go. I'm going to move it out of the way for a minute here. So if we look at what the raid does, the first thing you come to is, let me just get my, so step 1, if there's already a war column, well there isn't, so let's ignore that. Step 2, if there is 1 or more ravage counters in any space belonging to an active enemy, execute recover instead. So recover means that you remove ravage counters. So, and we do have one on a grey unit, Upper Arkansas 4, grey tribe. So we're looking to remove that. Now, one thing on the history card is in the middle is an instruction there. It says, while in play, enemy recover instructions succeed only on a die roll of 1 to 3. On a 4 to 6, the action points are spent, but no ravage counter removed. So it's a 50-50 that it will be removed at the moment. So let's roll the dice. A 6, it doesn't get removed. But that is actually the free action. The free action is nothing happens. Okay, but it's not over yet. So the next thing we do is we pick out a marker from the Success Cup, and we flip it over, and it's a success. That's great. It doesn't give us a success. What it means is that it doesn't give us any more bad stuff. So this goes back into the cup. If it was enemy APs, it would now float downwards all the way to the enemy APs section. Let me just click off that instruction there. So, oh yes, thanks Mike. Yes, you do have to flip, a roll to flip. I forgot to do that for the north. Let me just do that. So these instructions, these instruction chits are double-sided, and when you activate a particular enemy, you roll to see which of these chits flip. That's why there's 6 of them there in the stack. So it's a 6, so that hunt marker flips. Right, so we didn't get any, we got a success out of the pull, so all we've got to deal with is 2 enemy APs. So again, we see which enemy we're talking about here. On a 1, it's still the north. You'll see the bias here in the card is that it's a 50-50, it'll be the west, and that's why I was a little paranoid in putting the ravage marker over on that enemy space, because it tends to do more than the other 2. But we've had north going so far. We roll again to do our flip, is instruction 2. Oh, hang on, I did the raid, didn't I? I'm getting ahead of myself here. When we did the raid, which wasn't a recover, which didn't actually do anything. We actually shuffle everything around. So actually, that raid marker goes down here. So actually, ally is the first chit we pick out here. Now, ally is normally a really good thing for us. It actually makes one of these tribe settlements actually on our side. Doesn't do a huge amount, but it is useful. It can certainly get in the way of war columns. That's probably its better use. But it costs 3. But we only have 2 enemy action points available, so we can't actually use that. And anyway, if we did, it also has the instruction that if there's a ravage, it'll do a recover. But we don't even do that because we only have 2 points. Now, what do we do with those 2 points? Well, firstly, we'll put the chip back in a cup. And then there's the available enemy AP's brown marker on the general records track down the bottom left, and we move that to 2. So those are stored for a later turn. So we never get any freebies here. It never just disappears. It always gets stored. So that's our cleanup phase, all done. There are some other things that could happen, but it's much later in the game. Nothing else we need to do here. One other thing I forgot to do as well is when I finished my operation, the operation markers should have gone up 1 spot. That's before all the nasty operational cleanup stuff happens. Right, we're on to the second operation here. Yeah, so I think I've caught up with all the roles to do. I think I did north. Did I do north again? I didn't do north again, did I? Yes, I've missed it. I've missed out doing the flip again. So let me just do that. Number 6. So how that raid flips. Yeah, thanks for keeping an eye. Sorry, just watching the stream, working out on the game, and actually just blabbing a lot. You can miss things, so appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, second operation. What are we going to do? Right. Well, we could do more raids, but we're still with our successes to 3 successes. I'd like to get more successes on my Mahimiana, so we might take some actions, although I'm a little bit worried. Yeah, I don't want to do too much more raiding here. There's a reason why we want those successes on the Mahimiana, because they get better, and when they get better, the Paraibe gets better as well. We could do a raid with the Mahimiana, and maybe we'll do some bison hunting as well. The alternatives, what can we do? Well, doing a culture is always very useful, although at the moment it's got a minimal effect. Effectively what you do is you count how many areas you have rancherias in, these coloured areas around the board, and you add that number of culture points. And if you control an area, i.e. there's no other Indians or other settlements around, you get a bonus point as well. At the moment, we don't control anything, and we're only in one of these areas, so we'll get 1 culture point. Culture points are very precious, but that's kind of a waste of a turn, I think, at the moment. What we need to do is do some spreading out before we do culture. Right, so let's set ourselves up for some more raids. So we'll take we can take our finished bands, we flip them back up. And we can take our Mahimiana and some horses. Oops, it's taking everybody there. Take our horses across and the Mahimiana. And let's do some raiding with the first warband. Now, we could go back to the settlement, or we could go back to west, or we could go to this other settlement over here. I think, seeing as we're tiptoeing here at the moment, I think we'll go for the settlement in Upper Arkansas 5. I think I might be lucky in that maybe these ravage counters will hang around for a while. So we move 1, 2, 1 movement point because we've got horses. If we don't have horses, it's 2 movement points per road, per connection. We get there and we start to do some raiding. We got our Mahimiana with us, so let's roll and see. We got a 2. A 2 means we get actually 3 pulls, 2 for the strength of the warband and +1 for the Mahimiana. So we pull 3 chits this time. See what they are. 2 successes, 4 enemy APs. The enemy AP chits vary from 2 to 4. So you'd seen a 2 already. That was the nice one, and the 4 is the nasty. But we got 2 successes out of it. That's pretty good. So let's get our Ravage counter out. And we will also, now with 2 successes, we get 2 things to steal. So let's have some more captives. Probably just some more captives, I think. I'm okay with horses for the moment. And we'll head back, breathing a sigh of relief. You can imagine if all 3 of those counters were enemy action points, it could get very expensive. So let's flip him over. And we have our other chap without the Mahimiana. So I think he's just going to go bison hunting. Right, so he moves here for 1. To hunt boar, if you've got the Mahimiana with you, bison, sorry, not boar. If you have the Mahimiana with you, it costs you 2 movement points. If you don't, it costs you 3. So that'll be 3, and we will take hold of the bison, and then we'll move back. So again, flip over. So hopefully you're kind of getting the hang of how we do raiding at least, or actions. And that's the end of my operation. So we'll click up again the operations marker, and then we go to our favourite part of the turn, of course, which is the operation cleanup phase. We first unstack everything. Horses go back. We have a bison. The Mahimiana comes out. Horses there, and we got a stack of captives here, which is cool. And just checking we had a Ravage counter. That's fine. We've got 2 finished bands again. So at the start of the cleanup phase, we roll a dice to see if the enemy gets a free instruction. 4, they don't. So we're on to our success pick. Let's see how we do. It's 2 enemy APs. So that adds to the stack we already have, which is 4. And we check to see which of these opponents are up to no good this turn. We roll a dice. A 4 is west. It's the yellows. We roll again to see which of these chits flip, and it's settle becomes subjugate. And then we actually look at these to activate these instructions. The first one we have is subjugate. So that costs us 3. So we can get rid of the 2. Return to draw cup, and remember our stock of available enemy APs down to 2 to 1. So subjugate. At the moment, because of the War of Spanish Succession and other these development cards here, subjugate has instructions have no effect, as though they don't actually do anything. However, of course, with the subjugate the subjugate instruction, we do a recover instead of an actual subjugate. So this means that we're not subjugating, but we're rolling to get rid of this Ravage counter on the enemy space, yellow enemy space. So 50-50 again. We're looking for a 4, 5, or 6, so it doesn't get removed. A 2, it does get removed. So we delete that Ravage counter, and that costs 3, and we're down to 4 plus 1 stored is 5. We look to the next one, and the next one is culture. Right. So culture. This is actually why we wanted the subjugate not to remove the Ravage counter. The culture is the baddie here. So with culture, we spend 3 points. So let's return the 4 back and put the available store up to 2. And what culture does is you look at that enemy and you remove a culture point plus 1 culture point for each settlement it has on the board. Now, luckily enough, it doesn't have any settlements on the board, and when it does, it's really dangerous here. But this is going to remove 1 culture point from us. And remember, if that and the military get down to 0, we lose the game. We're left with 2 points, and the next action is settle. So that doesn't happen because it'll cost 4, so we stop there. And when we stop there, we shuffle everything up, and we bring everything round in a kind of U thing. So the last is first, first is last idea. So they come around to populate the column back. Right, that's it for that operation. We're about halfway through the first passage of time here. We're getting close to it. So what are we going to do next? Well, there is no war columns, so we don't have to worry about that. We could do a culture. We could do some more bison hunting, and we could do some trading. Now, the interesting thing that the yellow space has now not got a ravage counter on is that we can actually trade with it now. So we may do some trading, and what we can do is we can take captives there. Normally it's only captives. If we want to trade something else with them, we need to use action points, and this is a little marker I haven't really talked about here, which is this this little blue one which is currently on the 1 on the general records track. So we have 1 action point. Those are quite precious. We generally use those to buy cards. So if you look at the UT Alliance card, development card here, it says spend 1 AP to take into hand. And this will give you a 3 strength band, which is as big as you can get. Or you can try and get rid of a tribal settlement counter on a dice roll. So that's quite a nice card. So I'm not really going to trade my APs for that at the moment. The last thing we can do is called planning, and this is what I think I'm going to do now. I've got a load of success markers with the Mahimiana, and I now want to use them. But there's downsides to this. All right, but let's run through it. Let's just have a look at the planning stuff here. I won't do anything on the. I'll just run through it briefly before I do something, so we don't cover anything up. So the first 3 steps is all about dealing with these successes at the Mahimiana's track. So effectively, what happens is if you have any successes, the Mahimiana goes up 1, so he'll go from 2 to 3. At that point, you then take a success and you give it to the Paraibo. Okay, and then if there's more successes, let me make sure I do this in the right order. Yeah, if there's another success, we click up the Mahimiana again, but then we take that success and we dump it into out of play. If there's more successes, we go back again. So we give it to the Paraibo, and then if there's still successes, we click up the Mahimiana and put the success in out of play. So at the moment, we've got 3. So the first thing we do is give ourselves a +1. Then, oh, no, I won't do that yet because you can't see it. Right, on the track here, we have the 3 successes. So the first thing we do is give ourselves a +1. Then we put a success down to the Paraibo. Then we still have successes, so we give ourselves a +1, and then we take that success and take it down to out of play. We've now got 3 down there. Okay, we've still got a success, so we give that success to the Paraibo. And now we don't have any more successes, so that's the 3 steps. The first 3 steps done. Okay. So first 2 steps done. For step 3, we actually increase the Paraibo by the number of successes that ended up on his track. So he'll go up to 4 as well. But these then... actually, I've played that wrong. I think I've played that wrong. Yes, they don't go to out of play, do they? Yes, that's right. So 2 went down there, 1 went to out of play. It doesn't go to out of play. What it does do is it goes on the operation track. So one of these spaces, and I can choose any space I like, as long as it doesn't also have a success marker there already. So we'll plonk it there. That's why it doesn't go to out of play. Right, back where we were. The Paraibo gets moved to spaces, and then the success markers now do go to out of play. That's where I was getting confused. So we have 4 down there. When the operations marker gets to that success marker, so this will be at the end of this planning phase, then that goes back in the cup. So we do get that one back. So now they're 4s here. So this means we can run a whole lot more bands when we're doing an action phase. And also the Mahimiana is much more effective at raiding than he was before. Okay, this is great. So now we've got a little bit of gambling to do. So step 4, we can do what's known as a headman action. So a Paraibo can do a headman action. Or we can roll a dice against his value, okay? And if the number is equal to or below his value, we get that number of actions for him. If we roll above, we don't get any. So we can take the 1, or we can risk it. And when he's at 4, I think it's worth the risk. So let's roll a 1. He gets only 1 action anyway. After all that, we got our money back, I'm afraid. So 1 action. What can he do? So he can drop a medicine level, and he can add an action point to the track, an AP there, up to a maximum of 9. Or he could just spend APs to buy another development card, like that UT Alliance one, which is really nice. We can spend an action point, again, the action point itself that we have, just the 1, to return a success from out of play back into the cup. Or we can convert a culture point into a military point, which is pretty much the only way you can get military points in the game. But we've only got 1 action here, so I think the thing to do really is to just click up our APs to 2. Right, next step is if we have a Mahimiana with a rating of 0, we don't have one at the moment, we would roll to see what his new, this is effectively a new Mahimiana for a Comancheria. Now the bad news. So the bad news is that these finished bands all start to disintegrate. So we replace them with the next lowest value, which is these guys. You'll note that, let's flip this back up, that they get less capable, but they get faster. And these fast guys are actually very useful, particularly with the Lords of the Plains culture card that I have. So it's not terrible, but if you can imagine, if we do planning again, those guys disappear completely. We lose them completely. They go from 1 to 0. So planning has some pain here, and this really is the pain. It's not all of it. There's a little bit more to come. Now, we can move our Comancheria. We can just pick it up and move it, but we can only go as far as the total of the warband strengths that we've got in the Comancheria, which is 2 + 1 + 1, 4. So we could move 4 spaces with the Comancheria. Interesting. So the good thing we have with where he is at A is that the enemy space, yellow enemy space, is readily raidable. And so if we can get some ravage counters on them, then they won't do most of their work. However, we're close, but not right next door to the Indians we want to get rid of. So maybe we want to get closer, but still stay not that far from the enemy. And I think I know the very spot. So we're going to go 1, 2, and 3. So we're on this spot here. This allows us to kind of guard against the yellows. We can send warbands down, but we're also very close to these Indian tribes, which we can do stuff with if we can. Okay, so that's our move. Now comes the second part of the pain, and the enemy gets a free instruction. So, like we did before with the finished bands, dice roll, this just happens. So, let's see which enemy. The enemy is 5, and 5 is west. It's the yellows, and we don't have any ravage counters, so whatever they're going to do is going to happen. It's a free instruction, so it doesn't matter how much it costs, and that one is a settle, and we don't like settles. But first, we do a roll to see what changes. Oh, the settle changed. Brilliant. Let's flip them over. Oh. Right. So, we have a war on. Obviously, they didn't like us doing that original raid. So, we have a war, and it's free. So, what we do with that war counter is we bring it onto the board, and then we go up into our pieces area, and we pick out a yellow Spanish war column counter and stick it on top. Now, it's a war 4, which means that the strength of that war is 4, plus any number of settlements that they have on the board, which they don't have any, so it's just 4. So we have to make it 4. Now, the 4 means this is how tough it is to do over before it disappears. It's effectively got 4 steps. The little number has appeared. It was on 0 when it was on 1, is now on a -2. That's its combat value against our defenses, and that's quite nasty. Okay, and this is where my Lord of the Plains card will start to give us a bit of a hand here. So that's all we do with the war, but that planning has now put us in quite a difficult position. Maybe I shouldn't have moved around to where I am at Upper Arkansas 3 there, because I'm not far away from that war. Okay. Right, we then move up our operations counter again. So then we're on to our operations cleanup phase. We've got no finished bands to unstack, but we do have our success counter over here, and that success counter goes back into the cup. We have no finished bands, so there's no rolls for enemy. We draw and reveal a counter. Let's flip it up. Is a success, which means there is no enemy APs. We only have the 2 that are stored. So let's see which enemy it will be. 5 is west again. We need to have shuffled these guys up. And who are we going to flip over? Number 4. So that culture will flip. Oops. Hang on. I think I did something wrong there. I think I flipped everybody but culture. There we go. Peace. Oh, that's a nice one. It's much better than cultural attack anyway. Right. We've got another war. And yes, that will happen. Okay. We have 2 points to spend, and war costs 3. So, oh, actually, I've done this completely wrong. Yeah, while we have the War of Spanish Succession, wars and subjugates don't have an effect. So actually, this guy doesn't appear. So we need to bring that, delete that. yes, it's not quite so bad. Let's put that back there. And yeah, so we have we don't have a wall. Phew. False alarm, guys. It's okay. Everything can go back to normal. And we can't afford this wall because it's a 3, even though it doesn't do anything. So we don't do anything with the enemy this turn. Well, wonderful, wonderful. Right, back around. The wall column phase. If there was a wall column, we would have done something, but actually it disappeared. So we're back up to our operational selection. Now, we're looking at our out of play area. We have 4 successes, so I think there's only 6 left in the cup. We do have a very strong Mahimiana and a Paraibo now, both on 4. That's very, very good. Yes, I think I will do some actions. I'm going to take a Mahimiana. Make these bands stack up with a Paraibo. Note we have a gap, and that gap can be very important. What are we going to do? Well, with that first one, and we have to go down the line from the Paraibo backwards, we have a 1-6 here with a horse. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and get this 1-6 to go and sit on that space, but not do anything, just sit there. And this is my guarantee for the Lord of the Plains. I know it's a bit early because wars don't have an effect, but again, I said I'm a bit paranoid. What do we do with the other 1-6? Well, I think we will march off across to Iano Castado 1 and do some bison hunting. So that's 1 to get there, 3 to take hold of it, and 1 to bring it back. Actually, I might change this actually. Yeah, he'll do what he did. The first guy though, I'll actually not just sit him there. Let me pull him back, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some captives with me and trade them in. So take 2 maybe. Yeah, take 2 with me. So moving 1, 2, and then 3, 4, we will trade these captives in. And I think we'll trade it for some food. Maybe some more food. Yeah, 2 food there. And I'll bring him back. I'm not going to be as paranoid as I thought I would. Let's do some trading. And he'll then come back into our fold here. So flip. Right, last. I will roll for passage of time at the end of this, because we're now on the 3. I don't believe I roll for it before the marker gets there. I think. Have I done more than? Yeah, I've done raid, passage of planning. So yeah, I should be on the 3. So I believe I need to roll for passage of time at the end of what I'm doing here. So let's have another horse and the Mahimiana, and let's do a little bit of raiding. And we'll skip this guy. Let's head to the 1 on 5 here. So Mahimiana's a 4. Let's roll on a 1. Now 1. It's very good. Now he's a 4. If I get less than that number, I get an extra chip pull. If it's less than double my number, as in a 2 or a 1 in this case, I get to pick twice. So I'm actually going to pick 4 chits now, which would be great in one way, but enemy actions. There's a good chance we'll get a success at least anyway. So flip it up. 2 successes. Get in there. That'll do. And a 2 and a 4. Could have been worse. Could have been a lot worse. That's as good as I thought it would have got, to be honest. 2 successes, another ravage counter. Also, we'll who should we take? We'll take some more captives. Why not? Bring it up, and then we'll march back with a spring in our step back to Comancheria. And that's our actions. So at that point then, so we need to roll a die now for the operations track. So if we get a 1, 2 or a 3, we will need to do passage of time in our next operation. Let's do that. A 1, brilliant. Okay, so operations counter goes to must do passage of time next turn. So we don't have a choice about what we do. We have to do the passage of time operation. Not terrible, actually, as it turns out. Not terrible. Oh, I left my feed behind. Did I leave my feed behind? Yes, I did. Right. Okay, that is as it is. Onto our operation cleanup phase. The operation cleanup phase, we unstack. Put our horses back. Mahimiana comes out, very pleased with himself. And also the trade went well as well. So things are looking good. Believe me, it doesn't usually last. Right. Did I put a second ravage counter here? Yes, I did. Good. Okay. Right. Now, have we got any finished bounds? Yes, we do. We have 3 on this Comancheria, so we roll against that to see if the enemy gets a free instruction, and of course they do. Let's see who it is. It is 6, which is south. Interesting. Okay, south. What flipping do we do? Number 5. Oh, flip a wall. That can't be bad. Oh, goes to a culture. Great. All right, so we have a free instruction, which will be a settle. And a settle is they part putting out their coloured settlements. Right, and it will be as close as possible to the green enemy space, but it can't actually stack with or replace an Indian tribe. You would need a subjugate to get rid of it first. So it's going to jump that. So it could be Rio Grande 4, or it could be Brazos, Colorado 6. And let's just roll to see which one it was. 1, 2, 3 for Rio, 4, 5, 6 for Brazos, Colorado. To 6. So we remove the bison and we put a green settlement down. Now remember, culture. This guy adds for culture. Right, that was the free instruction. And we put the settle round again. And we now do our success check instruction. Hoping for a success, but we've kind of drained it at the moment. No, 4 enemy APs. So now we have 10 enemy APs, 12 enemy APs to deal with. Who's it going to be? 4, it's going to be the West. Let's roll to see who we flip around. Number 1, so war flips. Oh my god. I would have preferred the war because it wouldn't have happened. Oh well, here you go. As I said, things are looking pretty good, and then the game can really kick you in the guts. Right, let's get on with this. Return to the draw cut. We use 4 for a culture, and we lose a culture point. Next, we have a peace counter. That's great, because a peace counter, it uses the 4 up, well, 3 of the 4. Click up to 3, and we put the peace counter on that space. Now, peace counter means that they're not actually an enemy at the moment. So this will actually prevent wars appearing. Plus, also it makes us able to trade with them completely freely. Just doesn't just have to be captives. We don't even have to use action points. So it's a good counter. Next we have a subjugate, which comes across and costs 3. So that's the 2 returned and 1 of the stock. But subjugate doesn't have any effect, so that's great. And finally we have 2 available, and the piece count, the second piece counter is a 4, so nothing happens. So let's move these guys upwards. And bring those around to the stack. Okay, and you'll see the piece marker now isn't in the stack anymore, and there's a gap. But that is actually intentional to have that gap. Right, so that's the operation cleanup phase now. So we're round to another sequence of play. Wall column phase, there's no wall column. I think I'll be going for a little bit longer yet. Hopefully everybody's still engrossed. I would hope. Put stuff in the chat, please, if you've got any advice. If you've been here before. I've been here before. And it goes rapidly wrong very quickly. I'm sounding like Marvin the Paranoid Android here, aren't I? But anyway, do drop in any tips or anything I get wrong. Thank you very much, and which you have been doing already, which is great. And I'm actually quite happy that I've got more wrong than what I have done. Right, operation selection phase. We don't have a choice. We have to do the passage of time. Okay, so the passage of time is another set of instructions here. So the first thing we do, which is really nice, is all our bands are marked unfinished. So these guys all come back. So in the planning, they get reduced if they're finished. In passage of time, they actually get refreshed. Brilliant. Now, a player may spend resource counters from in-play rancherias in order to create new band counters. And the cost is the population points, is the strength of the band, is 1 plus the number of new bands already created. So the first ones cost 1, the next cost 2, etc. I think we'll have 1 more, and he comes in as one of these 1/6s. And that costs us a population point, which is equal to 1 of the bison. So let's get rid of the bison and turn him into one of our war bands. Now we can spend resources to improve the level of the war bands as well. So I'm going to spend 3, I think, which is 2 food, or 1 food and 1 captive. And the 2 becomes a 3. Note that the 3 is slower than the 2, and the 2 ones become 2s. So the tribe is growing, and growing in power. Okay, now I could place a new rancheria if I had a band which was hanging around on the map, but I don't, so I can't. Now I can voluntarily retire a Mahimiana on any of the rancherias in order to transfer his medicine to the Paraibo. Okay, which sounds like something you wouldn't do. However, just after this, you have to roll for the survival of each of your headmen as well. But if we transfer the Mahimiana strength over to the Paraibo, he's immune. So I think I'm going to do that. So the Mahimiana transfers, which is the same amount, but he goes back to 0. So there isn't a chief now. Effectively what this means is the old Mahimiana became the Paraibo. Now we do a headman death check. So because we did that switch, we are immune. That's great. Now we roll for our new Mahimiana to see how strong he is. And it's effectively a dice halved round down. A 5 becomes a 2. That's not so bad. Okay. The other good thing is that all the success counters, and yeah, we didn't use them to improve the Mahimiana, but he was pretty good anyway, they all go back to the draw cup. and this includes the ones that are out of play as well. So we're all refreshed there as well. We don't have any resources on our operations track. There are ways you can get those. Each tribe with a ravaged counter or more is now removed, which means both of these have gone, which means we're in control. Ooh. That's very good news. Now, the next thing we do is we check peace and ally tokens. We have one peace token on here with the West, and we roll against it. If we get more than that value that's on the card, it gets removed. So 5 is greater, so that piece goes back to the track. Didn't last very long. Right, now we look and see what happens with the bison. And with the bison, we roll a dice to check a particular territory. As you can see, all of these coloured territories have a little dice with coloured dice next to them with a different pip value. And that's how you work out which area you're talking about. It's 3. 3 is... where's 3? 3 is 2... where is 3? It's Iano Castellano. Yeah, Castacado. Okay, here we go. So, so we put a bison in there in an empty space. Oh, there's an empty space, and it's right next door to us. Lovely. So a new bison goes there. Now, for each empty development card space, these 3 up here, if I'd actually picked up UT Alliance, then we would have done this again, but we don't. That's it for the bison. We then discard all these cards, which I don't really want to, but I'm afraid we have to. I didn't grab hold of the UT Alliance, but actually we're doing quite well with our wall bands here, so yeah, we didn't necessarily need it. Also, that war of Spanish Succession is gone now, so wars and subjugations by the Western enemy do happen. Oops, wait a minute. We have to flip them one by one. So flip this up. This is when revealed. Conduct step 12 of the passage of time procedure, which is the bison. So we do the bison again. Area 5. Area 5 is Brazos, Colorado, and we have no space there. When we don't have any space, I can remove one of those bison counters and place it anywhere I like. So I'm going to take this guy, and I'm going to put him, guess where? Right there next door to me. Lovely. It's just migrated. That's that card done, and it doesn't do anything else. So it's just a holding card now. Let's flip this up here. While in play, we got Taos Pueblo. Trade open to Comanches. While in play, the West Square enemy space, that's the yellow one, is treated as a peace space for trade purposes. This means we're not restricted to just captives. But I can't raid it. And I can't do a warpath. Warpath is what the warfare culture card gives me. So I can't do anything nasty to it. That's actually not good. I probably wanted to raid that space quite desperately. But anyway, I'm going to have to tiptoe this next turn. So the last one. The end of the UT Alliance. So, oops, sorry. Trying to keep that expanded. Right, when revealed, place one available tribe into Upper Arkansas Area 1. Yeah, great. Remove any bison. There aren't any there. That's it. That's all we do. But while the card is in play, that tribe does not count against Comanche control of Upper Arkansas. Well, while that card's in play, but once that leaves, it certainly will. So that hard work of getting rid of the Indians in Upper Arkansas, we just got some other people have appeared relatively behind us, if you see what I mean. Okay, well that's our development card. Wonderful. Now I can purchase a culture card. I've got 1 culture point. Now, I think I'm going... Well, it would have been nice to do a culture immediately on the first operations phase, because I would have got two. I would have got one for the Rancheria in Upper Arkansas and the control of Upper Arkansas. Do I still get that with that card? Doesn't count against control, so I do still get the 2 culture. However, we've only got 1 point, and if I do the culture, I'll only get 2. So I don't think I'll buy a culture card. I'd like to, but I don't think I can afford it. Right, last thing we do is put the operations marker back down, and the passage of time marker goes up. So we've got our minutes to hours happening here. Okay, I'm just wondering if I should hold it here because we've done 1 full passage of time. I think that's probably a good idea because you guys have got other things to do wherever you are. So I think I will end it here. Hopefully it's been a bit educational for the people who haven't seen the game, and for people who have played the game, hopefully it just hasn't been too much of a disaster and you're not rolling in the aisles. So until next time, when we do this, we're back to normal programming on Tuesday. Jordan, I think you're in the you were watching, and should be around on Tuesday with Jordan for GMT's Elusive Victory, which is getting into an interesting stage. We've got a few corrections to put on there as well, so I hope you can join us for that. And I'll be announcing when the next Comancheria will be, and we'll see you all then. Until then, bye for now.